I suspect that this subject today can probably hit close to home for a lot of people. Do you know your own worth and value when it comes to doing projects like this, especially when it comes to doing work for other people? I just recently had an experience I want to share with you, and it ties into knowing your worth and value. Don't go away. It's a Talk About It Tuesday, and that's what we're going to talk about. I'm Mike, and this is My Car's Shop. One of the upsides of completing your 59th year of life is that you've got a lot of experience that you're bringing to the table when it comes to doing work. I literally have done work on hundreds of cars, both for myself and for customers, whether it's complete jobs or part jobs or mechanical work, and that's just the hot rod stuff. I'm not talking about my days when I was a wrench. But I've also been in business for myself for most of my life. And one thing that's always a challenge is not underselling yourself. Well, I just recently had an experience I want to talk to you guys about. It was actually doing a truck for somebody, not a 39 Dodge like I'm doing for Becky. It was a 53 Chevrolet pickup. Cool little pickup, cool little project. I was really excited about doing it. So let me talk to you about my mentality. And first of all, I want to make it very clear that I'm just sharing the experience from my perspective. There's no condemnation or judgment or anything for any of the parties involved. I'm obviously not going to name names. You're not going to know who it is, but I want to talk about sticking to your guns. Doing custom work, especially something that's not been done to the best of my knowledge, can be expensive because it's very, very time consuming. I have a particular hourly rate that I base things on depending on what I'm doing. It can fluctuate anywhere between $75 and $150 an hour if I'm doing work for other people. And you may say, oh my gosh, that's terribly expensive. I have reasons for doing it. I'm not going to be getting into necessarily those today, but let's just summarize all that by saying I've got a lot of experience, not just with doing stuff, but also experience with people, and I've learned some things. So anyway, this project was brought to my attention by my buddy Mike that owns All-in-One Auto here locally. I don't mind giving him a shout out. If you need auto repair and you're in this area, go see Mike at All-in-One Auto. Tell him that Mike from My Car Shop sent you. He will know who the hell you're talking about. But anyway, it was a referral from a job that somebody had asked them to do and they were not able to get to it. And he said, call my buddy Mike. He can help you out. So I went through and I did research on the project, and I did a bunch of calculations and researched wheelbases. So the project was taking a 53 short box step side pickup and putting it on a 97K 1500 chassis. Now I was told it was a short box chassis, but I went up to look at the truck, and it's a long box, which means there was shortening the frame and all kinds of work there to get the chassis ready. The chassis is also wider on the K1500 than it is on the 53. The project would not have worked, according to everything I looked at, if it was a two-wheel drive because the chassis was too wide. But on a 4x4, it actually was going to look pretty cool. And if I think of it, I'll put the rendering in here. Anyway, I started going through what it was going to take to move the axle on the long box, exactly what the differences were between the long box and the short box chassis frame. I learned a lot. I will say that. I did learn a lot. It's not the same frame between the short box and the long box. The frame angle is different. There's all kinds of different things that they do to get that 14 inches difference between the short box and the long box. Now, it's a common job that a lot of guys do out there, and there's some tricks to taking a long box frame and making it into a short box frame. And it doesn't require sectioning the frame. You can move the axle and shorten the rear of the frame. I don't want to get into all that, but I spent quite a few hours going down the rabbit hole of what was that aspect of the project going to be. And I learned that, and okay, I can put that aside now. I know that's probably going to take me 20 hours or so to do that. And then the difference between the wheelbase, I don't remember the numbers exactly. I'm just going to make some stuff up. Let's say the 53 Chevy was 117 and the short box K1500 was 118 and a half, something like that. So I knew I was going to have to do a little fudging. I went up and I measured the K1500. I measured the 53. Everything looked like it was going to work. The 1500 radiator was going to fit under the hood of the 53. The spacing was right. I don't think we were going to have problems with frame horn fronts and all of that stuff. I spent hours and hours, probably, I wanted to say 6 or 8 hours, but it might have been more time than that. A couple of trips up to measure things once I had done more research, to go back and learn things. I spent a lot of time because I didn't want to bid the job until I knew fully what I was getting into. I figured I was probably going to have at least 300 hours of actual hands-on work. That didn't include all of the research that I was going to have to do moving forward. Like, okay, what are we going to do once putting the body on the chassis? That pretty straightforward. I think that whole part of the job would have been able to be done in, let's say, 100 hours, 150 hours maybe. By the time you work out all the details and make custom cab mounts. And the cab itself did need some work. There was some body work. It was not nearly like the 39, but every project I look at seems like it has a crushed roof. This had where like a tree fell on the roof of it, and there was some body work too, which I was excited about doing all of that. We needed to replace all the glass because it didn't have safety glass in it. And of course, it's got those wonderful curved, because it was a 5-window, so I won't mess with those. I always get a glass guy out to deal with that stuff. Most glass I can do. Certain things I know I don't want to muck with. Those things are expensive. On and on and on. So I spent a lot of time putting this together and figured the job was probably going to run $35,000 to $40,000 to do the whole thing. Now you may think that's a lot of money. And it's because that is a lot of money. But I know that I'm going to be married to this thing for the next 2 to 3 years. I know that's what's going to be. Now, I made it very clear it was not going to be the only thing I was going to be working on. I was going to actually replace my Talk About It Tuesdays, and I plan to work on that truck about 10 hours a week and film those episodes and put them out on the channel. It's one of the things that I told the person who wanted me to do the project is one thing you can guarantee is every single week, with some exceptions here and there, you're going to see something on the channel and you're going to see the progress happening on the car. Now, where the project would get expensive is when you're trying to figure out how to take all of that electronic stuff. It's a complete truck. It's all there. What are we going to do for instrumentation? All of that stuff. That's where it would start to really consume a lot of time. What instruments are we going to use? Are we going to go to Dakota Digital? That's going to be expensive. Are there Dakota Digital gauges that would work with the 97, that would fit in the 53? I mean, it's all fun stuff, all exciting stuff. And let me clarify that 97 was a running and driving truck. Now, the body was all off of it, but it was all there, and it was a running and driving truck when it was tore apart. My buddy Mike actually was the one who took the body off and cut it up to get it ready to put the 53 on it. All the research aside that I generally don't charge for, I also know that I'm going to have a lot more hands-on time than what I'm quoting it at. That's all grabbing a handful of air. But I think that 300 to 400 hours was probably going to do the truck. And when it was done, she would have been driving down the driveway with the truck and going on. Now, I knew there were certain things I was going to have to sublet. We weren't painting the truck. I was going to do more of a patina. It did have to have some paint work because there was some rust, but it wasn't a really rusted out truck like that 39. It had to have a bed floor put in it, so there was all of that needed to be done. A lot of dents and things that would need to be kind of taken out a little bit, even though we're going to leave it patina. She wanted a nice driving vehicle, and there's a lot of stuff to figure out. Now, if it had been being put on an S10 chassis, it would have been a lot simpler in some ways because that's been done over and over and over again. However, the difference between the K1500 and an S10 is the K1500 was a complete running driving truck. It had a V8 in it with all the modern conveniences. If I'm putting in an S10 chassis, we've got to figure out what we're going to use for a motor and a transmission, and we got to upgrade things to be more with fuel injection. there's a lot of stuff there to sort out. Then I got to go searching and buying stuff. So money-wise, it pretty much would have been a wash as far as I was concerned. So we were still going to be in that ballpark. So I had frame blueprints and body dimensions and chassis dimensions and renderings that I had done of what the truck would look like based upon the K1500 short box. All of that stuff in hand when I sat down with the owner to talk about the project. We talked it through. I wanted to know exactly what her vision for the truck was, what her intent, what her purpose was, what does the truck mean to her. All of that stuff needed to be worked out and talked through, so that I'm not going one direction when she has something completely different in mind. So we were kind of all on the same page, understanding that there's going to be decisions to be made on a weekly basis, probably as I get into something. Okay, how are we going to handle this? Okay, how are we going to handle that? You get the point. There's a lot of decisions to be made. I'm not necessarily the one to make those decisions, although I do insist that to some degree I'm allowed to have artistic license in a project like that, because I'm the one doing the work and I kind of have the bigger picture vision. She knows what she wants, but I have the vision of how to get there. So it would be kind of a symbiotic thing. So it came down to, when could I start? And my take on it was, I can take my trailer up and get it next week, which would have been 2 weeks ago. And I can have it, the back room's already cleaned out. I have a beam up above that I can pick the body off of it with, and we can slip that four-wheel drive chassis under it after I get that frame shortened, and we can have the thing on its own body before the weather turns bad, or on its own frame, the new frame, before the weather turns bad. That was not going to be a problem at all. So then it comes down to the money. And so I said, it's probably going to cost $35,000 or $40,000 by the time you pay my labor and all of the work we're going to have to outsource. Some of it might have to be done by All-in-One Auto because they may need to get the scanner on it to get certain things to work properly. You just have to allow for all of that. New glass, which I can install, except for those cab corners, those 5-window rounded glasses, et cetera, et cetera. There was a bunch of work that would need to probably be outsourced, but I was going to do as much as I could in-house, including upholstery, all of it, and outsource as little as possible. The problem came down to just the money. That we were probably $15,000 apart on price, $10,000 to $15,000, and she didn't want to spend that, which I understand, because one of the conversations was, what will this be worth when it's done? Well, it's not going to be worth 40. My figuring was going to be 25 to 30, in that ballpark, the way I was planning to do it. I was going to do it at a much higher scale than some of the work I've done around here, for sure, and because I was doing it for a customer. So that's kind of where the whole thing came off the rails at that point. And here's the point of this Talk About It Tuesday. It's a long-winded story. We were sitting right here in chairs, and I was really, really tempted to compromise my price. However, I know that sounds like a lot of money, and I can just see the comments down here from some people who will think that I have an over-exaggerated view of my worth, and et cetera, et cetera. Every time I've compromised a price on a job, it ends up biting me right in the old derriere really hard. I end up married to the stupid thing, and I end up just getting whatever I have to do to get it gone, and I'm losing money on the project. The advantage of coming here, which I rarely ever entertain doing work for anybody else, I just don't. But I felt like financially it was a good decision for me, and the challenge of the job was really exciting to me. I was pretty pumped up about doing that project that specific way. Will there be things available for it? Not much, but I have a full machine shop, a full fabrication shop. You've been around the channel any length of time. You know there's pretty much nothing I can't make. So I knew that this was the place. I do upholstery here. I do body. I do paint. I do fabrication. I build chassis. I build race cars. If you've been around the channel for any length of time, you know all of this. And I know that my particular set of skills has a value, because there's a lot of guys that can build an engine. There's a lot of guys that can build a chassis. But to get it all in one shop is pretty rare. Here's the reality. I'm going to have to be running around getting stuff. That's on my nickel. I'm going to have to heat the shop and pay the lights while I'm working on that project. I'm going to have all kinds of stuff. I have all the metal here, probably just going to be including that in the project because most of the metal I have is not salvaged, but it's repurposed materials. So there's still the expense that I had to get that stuff, bring it home, break it down, do whatever I need to do. There's a lot of hidden expenses. And my skill set has value. Whether you think my skill set has that level of value, I couldn't care less. But here's what I want you to think about. Where do you put your value when it comes to doing some of this work? Are you going to sell it cheap? The trifecta. If you get it cheap, you can't have it fast, or all of the or good, or that trifecta. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've done six-figure cars. I've done $300 cars. We've done it all over the years. And the reality is that's what it costs. And it costs what it costs. And when you're building custom stuff, it's not cheap. So I did some market research because I want, what is it common? What are the costs out there? Now, granted, this is a one-man shop, but everything here, right, there's expense associated with it. And any fab shop out there runs anywhere from $100 to $250 an hour. Hot rod shops in that same range. Body shops start at $75 an hour. Even local mechanic shops start at $100 an hour on up. And that's not for craftsmanship type work that requires engineering skill and fabrication skill and stuff like that. So as far as the market goes, yeah, you can say, well, you're just a one-man shop and you don't have any overhead. Living is overhead, and my time is extremely valuable. If I'm not being compensated at a decent level, I just don't want to work. I'm not afraid of much when it comes to doing cars. I mean, if you brought me a $3 million Ferrari, I might pass that up. That's probably a little bit beyond the world that I live in. But the point here is, have you thought this through for yourself? What's your worth and value? Do you view yourself as a $5 an hour guy, or do you view yourself as a $1,000 an hour guy? I have different areas of my life. Okay, when I do guitar lessons, I charge $60 an hour. When I do fabrication work, it's $100 to $150. When I do counseling, it's $150 an hour. Computer work for my business. Again, I'm not necessarily getting this money, but the business is at $175 an hour. Everything has a value, and that value is based upon skill, based upon knowledge, based upon tools and equipment, based upon, more important than anything, experience. You can't emphasize that enough. You've spent a lifetime acquiring skills, very specific skills that make you a nightmare for projects like these. Unfortunately, she decided that she didn't want the project on, and she's selling it, and she wanted to know if I wanted, what its value was, first of all. And I kind of knew where this was going. And I said, the truck probably, in the condition it's in, I would say, I mean, it's pretty complete, $2,000 to $2,500 for that truck. I don't think that's an unreasonable price. It's not top dollar, but that's the area we live. And as far as the K1500 chassis, I have no idea what that's worth. And then she wanted to know if I was interested in buying the project. And I had to explain, as you guys know, I don't buy projects at fair market value. I buy them at junkyard or below value. Like the 39 pickup that's behind you, I have $18 into that whole project at this point. We have less than about $3,000 into the Stitches Challenger because I bought this at scrapyard value for $300. I can go down the list of everything here and tell you I only paid pennies on the pennies, really, not even pennies on the dollar. And so to look at that 53 project, and I don't buy cars for that kind of value. I look for the junk that nobody else would touch. And that's the stuff that I do for myself. Here's the reality. Look around you. Look at what you personally do, and look around you at what the people around you do. Does anybody else do what you do? I can honestly say that I know of very, very few people in this entire area that do what I do, and therefore that gives me a very unique position in the market, and I'm not going to undersell myself just for the sake of I've got to have the job. I don't got to have the job. I don't. I wanted the job, but the last thing I want to do is sell myself short and undervalue what I bring to the table. I encourage you to do the same thing. Look at the fair market value around you, look at what you bring to the table, and put the appropriate value, and don't undersell yourself. Your work is worth a lot more than you think it is. All right, that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you hanging out. I know I'm a bit long-winded today, but I thought it was a story worth telling. I don't, there's no hard feelings or judgment or anything else with the person that had this project. I completely understand all of it. And I just thought it was something good for my viewers to, for you guys to share in. I was hoping that I would be doing a video saying, hey, look at the cool project I have in the back room, and this is what we're doing. But it's the way it goes. So yeah, I'm not looking for more work. Nope, I'm not. I got plenty to do here. But, you know, I'd be foolish not to entertain ideas that would turn a good cash flow for me and challenge me in new and fun ways. All right, that'll do it. Like, share, subscribe. We have channel memberships for as little as $5 a month. We have merchandise. Go down there in the comments and find the link over to the Etsy, to the Schultz Sign Company store. And yeah, that'll do. And one more thing, it's important. Don't forget. Rock!